Hi guys, my name's Andrew and I'm going to talk to you about my new Epiphone DeLuxe Masterbilt bass. I just got this at Sweetwater, and there's some things I really like about it and some things I really don't like about it, so I want to tell you about that. Um, the first thing is it's an acoustic bass with these F-hole sound holes. One of the things that I found with this versus some other acoustic basses that I've played, it's not really that loud, just acoustic. So playing it in context of a band, I've sat down with my group Dirty Pillows, and and we had acoustic guitar and drums with brushes, and they overpowered me completely. So in order to get that up to a good volume, we had to plug in. And there's some whole other issues with playing this plugged in through my amp that we'll talk about later on in this video. But for now, I'll just talk about some general setup things and things I don't like about the bass or like about the bass in general. So the first thing I'll talk about is the neck. I really like the feel of this neck. It's a little bit thicker than some other, than like an electric bass. I think this is a D-shaped neck. A lot of my like my P bass and my J bass that I have are C-shaped necks, so they're a little bit thinner, but I don't really feel like much of a difference. One thing that I didn't realize when I was purchasing this, and I ran into some issues upgrading the strings, was it's a 30-inch medium scale neck. I wanted to replace the strings right when I got it because I knew that I wanted to play flat wounds on it. It came with some tape wounds. The difference between the flat wounds and the tape wounds, which I won't have in this video, but I'll just comment on. The tape wounds definitely had a little bit of a lower sound than the flat wounds. The flat wounds are a little bit more mid-range, high range. But I just like the feel of the flat wounds. The tape wounds were pretty loose, and I felt like they were really buzzy as well. That's another thing I noticed when I first got this was during setup, there's a lot of fret noise that I had to really adjust this bridge. One thing I'll say about the bridge is it was really easy to adjust, just like a standard like Epiphone or like Gibson floating style bridge. It was really easy to adjust. The low E string I had the most issues with. There was just like this area that was like completely dead, like in that area, but I kind of fixed it. There's still a little bit of a buzz, but it's not that bad. So one issue that I had when ordering strings is actually finding medium scale flat wound strings was pretty hard. I got Diodario was the only brand that I found that actually had the flat wounds in the medium scale that I needed. I accidentally ordered both long scale Fender flat wounds and then short scale Diodario flat wounds. That was my bad. I should have read the tech specs that were on the Sweetwater website, which clearly say medium scale, but that was just my bad. So now I have extra strings for other basses. One thing that I really, really dislike about this bass actually are the tuners. I wish we had like, I don't know how great it would look, but I wish there was just like cloverleaf tuners or something, because these tuners are very tight. If anyone knows how to fix that, whether it's like oiling these tuners or maybe I'll have to swap them out eventually, they really suck. It's one of those tuners you get like close to being in tune and then it feels sticky, and then you get it a little bit higher and then it just jumps to be too high. So that's kind of an issue. Other than that, it's like one of the most beautiful basses I own. I think of it more as a hollow body electric now, just because it's not very loud. I have this mic'd up right now for this video, so the volumes won't make a difference for you, but if you're ever playing it in a bedroom, you'll see how quiet it is. One last thing about just this bass itself that I'm not really a fan of. I play pick style most of the time, but I also enjoy playing finger style. And there's really no place to rest your thumb while playing like the low E string. It's just a little awkward to rest it on the body. So you kind of have to float out if I'm doing like, just kind of awkward to do it that way. I'm used to resting on a pickup on like my P bass, but it's not really, not really a problem if you're playing anywhere other than the low E string. And I tend to play a lot higher stuff, so it's not that much of a problem. I can just see it an issue for people who mainly play fingerstyle. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll play a few little licks here, and then we'll move on to talking more about what it's like to play this electric. So that's something with like a little more low end, and I'll play something that's a little more high notes. I like to play this way. So I think one last thing to say about just playing this acoustic, it doesn't really sound like a stand-up bass like some people have said online when I was reading reviews. However, when it is plugged in, you do get a little bit more of that stand-up feel, which is kind of what I'm really looking for when playing an acoustic bass. Is I want that stand-up feel without having to lug a giant stand-up bass around. So it checks off those when playing electric. I am just kind of disappointed that in a band setting, this is a little difficult to get some volume on it as it is. In the future, I might try to play. My sister has a Fender acoustic bass that has just a normal like circular sound hole. I might test that out with the band setting to see if there's a different volume wise or if it's just an acoustic bass issue. But yeah, so I'll move on next to the electric. Okay, the electronics on this bass, there's a pickup in the bridge here, and then there are two controls in this bottom F hole. There's a volume and a tone control. I have the tone rolled all the way off for this and the volume all the way on. I'm playing through my Mark bass head and an Avatar 210 cabinet. One thing that is really important to realize with this bass when playing acoustically is it gets a lot of feedback. I think for two reasons. It's just a hollow body guitar, but then it also has this bridge here, and both sides of the strings will feedback. Right now, I actually have a mute down here underneath this tailpiece. And one of the things that I was having a lot of trouble with when I first got this and I was playing with my band was I would play and I was getting a lot of feedback. And I was thinking it was just the string, so I'd mute it and I was still getting feedback. So even when you're muting the main part of the strings here, you'll get a lot of feedback on just this small section of strings between the bridge and the tailpiece. And so one of the things that I did was I just put this piece of cloth right under the bottom of the strings at the tailpiece, and it completely solved my feedback issue as long as I have like my hands on the strings. Sometimes if it's really loud, I'll still get feedback. And one thing that I do worry about this, if I was like switching between acoustic and electric, I probably wouldn't want to leave this mute here because I would worry about that making the volume even lower when playing acoustic. So just something to think about if you have this bass and you're trying to mute this bottom part of the strings. Maybe don't leave the mute in there all the time. So I'll play a little bit on through my amp right now. We'll see how it turns out. As I mentioned, the amp itself has more of a stand-up feel than when you're just playing acoustically. It definitely picks up the bottom end a lot more that you're missing. When you're just playing this acoustic, I think it's very trebly. You lose a lot of that body and that bottom end that you want from like a stand-up sound or just a bass in general. So I think playing electrically really complements this, but also kind of defeats the purpose of having an acoustic bass a little bit. So I'll play a little bit and you can see how it sounds for yourself. So yeah, that was just a little piece of a song from my band. I'll play maybe one more thing, and then that'll be it. Okay, so that's the Epiphone Masterbilt DeLuxe acoustic bass. Just some final thoughts on it. I definitely don't regret buying it. It was a little expensive, about $1,000, but I really enjoy it. It's such a beautiful bass. I do have a few complaints with it, but I'm working out those things and finding little hacks. If anyone else has this bass or has played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.